Matt Bernie, you're taking a look at the Pick 6 on Saturday from the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club. It is Pacific Classic Saturday. This is a really fun sequence, and I think it's a difficult sequence. Races 6 through 11. You've got 3 graded stakes involved. 2 of them happen to be of the Grade 1 variety, and you've got a number of other very interesting races, including a wide-open maiden special weight affair. Trying to keep this to a relatively economic ticket, but you could certainly spread deep. I went over the pick 4 sequence, the late pick 4 over on the Matt Bernier show, the preview edition. You can find that on video.drf.com as well as YouTube and iTunes. This instance, I'm going to have to get a little bit tighter. So bear with me. I believe it's about a $144 ticket that in time, we're going to have to wait and see. You've got a couple of last minute things. Take a look at the DRF Clocker report. Take a look at scratches and late changes and things of that nature. But let's dive into it. And I'll give you a little bit of an inkling. Maybe this is something that you just build around. The first race, number 6. First leg of this pick 6 sequence is the Grade 2 Del Mar Handicap, mile and 3/8 on the turf course. The horse to beat, the favorite, is It's in the Post. The question is, which version of It's in the Post are we going to get? The good, rock-solid one, which we've seen for the better part of the past 2 years, or the one that was terrible in the Eddie Reed? That reason alone, I'm not going to use him in this, but I can understand anyone that says, how are you going to just completely omit arguably the best horse in the race? I'm going to go too deep in here. I'm going to use the 5 horse, the horse that I actually like in this race. That's Unapologetic for Bill Spar and Kent DeSormo. This is a definition of a horse that you stretch him out, he's really just flourished. He's almost like a poor man's version of It's in the Post. Once they stretched It's in the Post out, he turned into It's in the Post. Prior to that, he was just kind of a middling sort. Unapologetic at middle distances, nothing special. You stretch him out. He's been stretched out to a 1.25 miles or greater on turf on 5 occasions. He has 3 victories, a runner-up finish, and he was eased in his first start going 10 furlongs. This is what he wants to do. Whether he's good enough or not on Saturday, we'll find out. But he's the kind of horse at 10 or 15 to 1. I think he could blow some tickets up as far as pick 6 plays are concerned. So certainly want to have him. And I'm also going to use the number 12 horse. He might be one of the best horses in the race, Fashion Business. I don't know what his distance is. I have a sneaky feeling this is going to be a little bit better for him, a little bit longer. He didn't pick his feet up in the Eddie Reed, and that's a bit of a concern, but at the same time, it sounds like Phil D'Amato was saying that was a means to an end to get him to this spot here. 1 mile and 3/8, that should be right in his wheelhouse. Too deep for me in the Del Mar Handicap. The 5, Unapologetic, 12, Fashion Business. We move on to race number 7. This is an interesting race, 6 furlongs. You got a number of horses coming back off of layoffs. You got a number of horses turning back in distance. I went 3 deep in here. I'm going to go with the 4, Denman's Call. He is a Grade 1 winner, but it feels like it was a lifetime ago. Ran sporadically over the past little while. We haven't seen him since the end of August last year, so he's been gone for nearly a calendar year. His best races have come at Santa Anita. I understand that. But I do kind of feel like there's a scenario where if this thing heats up on the front end, like it looks like it might on paper, he could come with a serious run if he's ready to go. I'm going to use the 5, Captain Scotty. I was very impressed with each of his first 2 starts. He came back in the Triple Bend, and he just, for one reason or another, maybe it was the hike up in class, maybe it was the 7/8, who knows what it was. He didn't get the job done. Been gone for some time. We haven't seen him since March, but if he comes back ready to go for the meets leading trainer, Peter Miller, I think Captain Scotty is definitely a player in this spot. He's 5-2. And I'm also going to use the 7, Gato Del Oro. Gato Del Oro might actually be, if I needed to make a pick in this race, it might be him because I know he's been gone for some time. We haven't seen him since the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile last year at Del Mar, but the blinkers go on. Asa Espinoza picks up the mount. To me, this is an instance where he has some speed, but he's not going to be fast enough to run with those other horses at 6 furlongs. Maybe this is nothing more than a means to an end and a prep for something longer. But I think he could take advantage of this thing. If all of a sudden the pace starts to fall apart, he's not going to be totally outrun. I think he's a little bit interesting in here. He's one of the 3 that I will use. I'll go to 4, 5, and 7 in the second leg of this pick 6 sequence. Let's move on to race number 8. It is the first of 2 Grade 1s. The Grade 1 Del Mar Oaks. Talked about it. We've gone over stakes previews. You can find all those on YouTube or video.drf.com. Talked about it in the Matt Bernier show. I look at this race in the pick 4. I'm not afraid to use some more horses, but because this is a pick 6 and a $2 base, got to start to get narrow, and it's the horse that I like the most on the entire card, the number 4, Ollie's Candy. Ollie's Candy, she has this sort of tactical speed that I think is going to just be beautiful for her here. She's paired up 90 buyers. Those are career tops. I think she's going to have a forward move here. 1 1/8, not a concern. I think Billy Moria does a tremendous job as a trainer. I just like everything about Ollie's Candy. She's won a graded stake on dirt, she's won on synthetic, and she's a neck away from winning a turf stake as well as being unbeaten in 4 lifetime starts. She's 3 for 4 and beaten him by a dirty neck. I think Ollie's Candy is strictly the horse to beat in here. If you were going to use other horses, Colonia for Grand Motion certainly fits, and I would also include Fatale Beret. I think that she's better than maybe it looks right now on paper. If you have the means and you can stretch it out, maybe include her. But for me, the single in this sequence is the number 4, Ollie's Candy. We move on to race number 9. This is the maiden special weight race. I talked about it when I went over the pick 4. You could go 6 or 7 deep in here, but because this is a pick 6, I'm going to narrow it down to 2 horses, and I talked about it ad nauseum, the idea that experience in these 2-year-old races goes so far. It doesn't mean that the firsters can't win, but if you have a little bit of experience, you have a leg up on everyone else. The 7 and the 8 fit that perfectly. I thought the 7, Istanbul, ran very well in the career debut, got beat by a very promising 2-year-old for Baffert named Roadster. I think this is a nice horse, and I think he fits in a spot like this. And Dueling would be my pick in here as well, just simply because he looks a little bit green. He's going out for Hollendorfer. All of Hollendorfer's 2-year-olds are just firing giant shots. Now you make the change over to Drayden Van Dyke. Need this horse to change leads and hopefully can be a little bit closer to the pace throughout. I think Dueling is a prime candidate. Too deep for me in the maiden special weight race, but I would not fault anyone that said you needed to go considerably deeper. Istanbul and Dueling, the 7 and the 8 for me in the 9th race. Let's move on to the big one, the Grade 1 Pacific Classic. Older horses, or I should say that, 3-year-olds and up, but there are no 3-year-olds in this year's race. Only too deep for me, and I know a lot of people are going to be singling Accelerate, and this is possibly an instance where if you really have the means, or if you have the gumption to go against Accelerate and you try to beat him, that's when this thing could really end up paying boxcars. I'm not willing to throw out Accelerate, but I do acknowledge that, you know what, he's been gone for some time and he's got to go 10 furlongs. He's the horse to beat, no question about it, but I'm also going to use the horse that I picked against him with. I'm going to go with Prime Attraction in here. I just feel like Prime Attraction is that kind of horse. It's a little bit dirtied up on paper, and perhaps he's better than it looks. He is a dope, and I know I keep saying that, and I don't mean it in a negative light, but he's just a goofball. He goes out there, and he's going to swap leads 15 times, and it is what it is. You just kind of come to know that. Talent has always been there for this horse. I'm hopeful that he sits just off the pace, let Dr. Door go, and maybe he gets the jump on Accelerate. 10 furlongs, maybe him swapping leads is going to cost him, but I think he's in a better position than maybe his paper and his form would suggest. 3 and 5 for me, Prime Attraction and Accelerate. I'll use both of them coming out of the Pacific Classic, and hopefully I'm alive, you're alive, we're all alive. Well, I shouldn't say that because then it wouldn't pay anything. Hopefully some of us are alive. When we get to the last races, the non-winners are one other than a mile and a 16th on the turf course. They break coming out of the chute. This is a scramble to me as well. I used 3 horses in the pick 4. I'll stick with that. I'll use the 2, the 6, and the 8. The 2 horses, Pioneer Lad, has a little bit of tactical ability. Not totally sold on a mile and a 16th, but at the end of the day, I think that tactical ability could be the difference maker for him in a spot like this. The number 6 is Any Questions. Any Questions in many ways could be sort of the key to this race, because coming off the claim, first time going out for Steve Knapp, mile and 16th isn't an issue, has run decently enough at Del Mar. I thought that most recent run on August the 4th was okay. Didn't think it was offensive by any stretch. And he was the favorite that day at odds of 7-2. I think this horse is really interesting, the 6 Any Questions. And I'll also use the 8 Kentucky Colonel. Kentucky Colonel, admittedly, I was not a fan of this horse early on in his career. Thought he was a bit of a hanger. Thought he was an underachiever. They gelded him last October, and he's come back, and he's been a different animal. The concern here is a mile and a 16th. That's probably pushing it for him because he barely hung on in that starter handicap most recently at Santa Anita. And also, he's a horse that usually needs one off the layoff before we see his best. I'm hopeful that's not the case this time around because he's going to be one of the 3 horses that I use here in the payoff leg of the pick 6, the 2, the 6, and the 8. So again, that's a quick look, down and dirty look, at the pick 6 sequence on Pacific Classic Saturday at the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club. You're going to take a look and see if there are scratches, changes, anything else like that. Take a look at live.drf.com before you put any of your tickets in. See if there's any up-to-date news or notes or whatever else it may be. Scheduled post time for the first leg of this sequence, race number 6, and you kick it off with a graded stakes race, the Grade 2 Del Mar Handicap. Scheduled post time is 4:30-ish Eastern Pacific. Best of luck.